Well, greetings again, everyone. Hope you're all doing extremely well out there. And a lot of things to talk about this time. I can't say that every time. Every time there's always something to talk about. Always weird to try and figure out an intro for this thing that kind of like prompts it in some way. But anyway, guys, interesting stuff to talk about. Getting up to a Redux video I'm going to be doing. I'm working on now to a degree in pre-production and various other things. A lot of interesting media pickups. But first of all, we got a lot of things new on the channel right now. First off, I got my video for the Insider, the Michael Mann film from '99, celebrating 25 years this year. Got that all complete and out. And Steve and I, we got our commentaries out for our Scott Derrickson birthday month double feature for Sinister and The Black Phone. So we really hope you guys will check those out, because I think they're two very strong commentaries. We had a lot of fertile ground to cover, a lot of things in just terms of the tone, the craft of everything like that. Some things a little bit more with Sinister we kind of had a little more critiques to, but Black Phone, we really just dug it so much. A lot of great things to talk about in terms of credit given to the filmmaking quality of that stuff, and the performances are absolutely stellar. We talk a lot of good things about that stuff, so really hope you guys, if you haven't checked them out yet, will take the time to check them out anyway, but really good things on that. And for next month, we're working on a date right now when we'll get to record that. This next set, we're doing The Abyss for the 35th anniversary, and we're doing Predator, because Steve just kind of threw it out. There's no special occasion, nothing else in that regard. He just thought, hey, Predator would be kind of an interesting one to throw out there. I figured, well, Schwarzenegger, Cameron kind of go a little bit hand in hand, even though there's not really any kind of real kind of, I don't know if Stan Winston worked on The Abyss. I think it might have been all ILM. So, but regardless, you got the Cameron stuff, Stan Winston, Schwarzenegger stuff. It all kind of ties in, and Cameron had a little bit of input on the redesign of the Predator and stuff like that. So I figure they're all kind of very linked together things. It'd be an easy transition, both kind of science fiction films, much more of a drama type of thing. One one's very much an action, tension, suspenseful type of movie. So I think it'll work out very well. So we're working on a date to kind of sit down and do that. Abyss is particularly a longer film, so we'll just have to make sure we have enough time to work on it and get that done in one shot. Hopefully, we'll see where things go in that regard. But those are definitely scheduled for next month. Beyond that, we just have a few. We'll get around to like Conjuring 3 in September, and our Adventures in Babysitting commentary as well. So Steve's very stoked for that. We're doing it kind of like, we were trying to find like a place for it and kind of something to market. So we figure, hey, Chris Columbus's birthday is in September. We'll drop it then. Good enough for us. And for October right now, we do have Creepshow set. I have Steve's Blu-ray for that from Screen Factory. And we still have The Batman on the schedule. Now, they do have the Penguin series hitting HBO and Max sometime in September. So hopefully things will work out. Well, I don't know how long the series is. We're doing a bunch of like a Hall H panels, stuff like that, previews and stuff like that today to find out a little bit more about it. But hopefully get at least a couple episodes in before we record it, if I could check it out and stuff like that, and at least have a little bit of that integrated into the talk of the commentary there. So that's quite a ways out to figure out when that's going to get we're going to record that later down the line. We'll see how things work out, because again, that's another 3-hour movie, and trying to do it with Creepshow is a bit of definitely more closer to like a 90-minute, 100-minute long film. Everything we'll just have to figure out just what kind of blocks of time we have, split things up if we want to do like the Batman as one thing, go back and do Creepshow and maybe the November stuff after that. Plenty of stuff to figure out in a long number of weeks at this point in time. A lot of time to figure that out. But I figure I'd give you guys a little bit of an extended preview of what's coming up on the channel in the next couple of months to get you a little bit hyped up for what we're going on in that regard. From that point onwards, from like what the next videos are in my regard, what I'm going to be shooting, I'm going to be talking about that during the media pickups, because there's a lot of stuff that just ties in all that type of stuff. But it is involved with a Redux video that I plan to be doing here soon, that I've already been compiling stuff, sharing some stuff on social media, mainly Twitter or whatnot, about what I've been planning and what I've been kind of gathering together or whatnot. But I figure this is the proper venue to give everyone a preview of exactly what's going on here. So a little early to jump into the media pickups, but as today, I grabbed something today because Barnes & Noble, they have the 50% off Criterion sale, and it ends tomorrow, the 28th of July. And so I grabbed this up today because, well, I was thinking about getting the Fall Guy because it just got released this week, but I figured, well, this sale's going to end and this price ain't going to hang around much longer than that. So I figured I had to grab up. I'm actually going to pull out the packaging here. I grabbed up the Risky Business 4K Criterion Edition here. So I figured I'd open it up on, not like it's much of a process or whatnot, but just to show you, I haven't even opened it yet. Haven't looked at anything on it yet, but in that regard, so getting that is a really good type of thing because I have the DVD special edition from forever ago, and I always kept kind of waiting because I knew it was like that's a very important film in the Tom Cruise lineage, very much in the '80s cultural landscape, very much important film in that regard. And apparently there's like a big old fold out son of a bitch here, so that's kind of nice. There's like both a poster here and like an interior booklet. That's kind of nice. I don't particularly care for folded up posters in a way, but it's got all the liner notes and the essays and everything like that on the back, so it's kind of nice. I mean, it's an idea. I probably will. I got enough posters around. I don't need to hang up another one, but it's nice they kind of have those types of little things integrated into the packaging. And so it's got a 4K and a Blu-ray disc on the whole thing. And apparently, from director Paul Brickman, there is 2 versions of the film on here because, famously, if you ever touched on the old Blu-ray or the old DVD set, he had an entirely different ending planned for the film, but they kind of changed it at maybe not at the last minute, but late in the process to what it is now that you've been seeing all these years. So I guess Criterion went ahead, if I'm correct on this whole thing, they actually went ahead and prepared both versions in 4K. Now, I don't know if there's any other differences besides the different ending, though. I don't know if he did any other alterations to the whole thing, but that's what I'm trying to just skim over this real fast or whatnot. But yeah, 4K digital restorations of the director's cut and the original theatrical release, supervised and approved by the director and producer John Avnet. So, plus I believe they have all the old DVD special features, plus brand new stuff, all the type of stuff. So it's like, I got no problem Criterion grabbing this up because it is a great film. And in particular, I have another very special connection to this film. My film Dead of Night, the short film I shot back in 2008, 2009, the climax of the film down the alleyway in Highland Park, Illinois, was used in the car chase in Risky Business. We shot in the exact same location. Blink and you miss it. The exact same alleyway is in my film and in Risky Business, separated by, God knows, 25 years. Between I think it was like 82, 83 or whatnot, this one came out. And we shot that scene in 2008. A lot of time passed in that regard, but you could, when we went with this, because I knew about it ahead of time from one of the guys on the production, helped arrange the entire thing, but it was just the fact that you could look at it and like it didn't change a day. I mean, it's an alleyway. It's not going to have that much of a change, but just like it was practically identical in that regard. But just a very particular type of thing for me to grab Risky Business in 4K, which I thought was well overdue for that entire upgrade in that regard. But I'm glad Criterion did this because Criterion is just the best. And this is the first 4K I have for Criterion. I have on Blu-ray for Criterion, I have Thief, Night of the Living Dead, and The Princess Bride. On DVD, I have the Chasing Amy Criterion, which I did see at Half Price Books today, going for just a regular DVD price. It was like $8. It's not very much in demand. It's probably not scarce is the thing. It's the thing that things go up in those times of prices when it's scarce. Because like, famously, I think Kevin Smith finally got the rights purchased back on Dogma, because it was previously personally owned by sleazebag himself, Weinstein. But he finally apparently got them back. But it was just a thing, is like, it would never got re-released. It's been so empty. There's been no other release for this thing for ages and ages. And of course, I have the special edition DVD, the 2-disc set. And I figured, well, I always figure like, well, if I ever wanted to sell it, it'd probably go for a big price. But if you go on eBay and look at it, 20, 30 bucks maybe, it's not a big thing. When I sold my Evil Dead Book of the Dead DVD set that thing, I put that thing up for auction, and the price just climbed and climbed. I probably sold that for over 50 bucks, 50, 55. I don't know what it was. It was at least over 50 bucks. It just climbed and climbed, bidding left and right, center. That type of stuff goes for a lot of price if it's collectors or kind of rare, out of print type of stuff. But if they're selling 80 copies of it on eBay, no one's going to be jacking the price up that much, because you just get it for any lower price from 24 other sellers. So one of those types of things, but anything in that regard. And one I did grab up, because I did mention on a previous update, I went to see this in the theater, horror film Abigail from Radio Silence, that I really thought was a really good piece of work. I haven't gotten around to sitting down and watching it yet. You guys have been just kind of dealing with other things and so on and so forth, but I really, really like this. I'm a little disappointed in Universal, because a lot of these new horror films they're releasing, they're like brand new films, they're releasing on Blu-ray, but they're really holding up back on the 4K stuff. They're really just really skittish about it for some reason, because a lot of these things are getting released in Dolby Cinema, so they either have Dolby Atmos, or a lot of them have Dolby Vision HDR grading on the whole thing, but they're not putting out the 4Ks right away. They kind of put out the Blu-ray and they kind of wait around a year and a half, see if they're going to do it, and maybe they put out like the Black Phone, which the HDR grade on the US version of the Black Phone 4K is not the one to get. It would be the one that's imported, but that costs you a lot more money to get, so I didn't grab that one because I just couldn't justify that higher cost at the time. So I went with just US Blu-ray, not the 4K, but some stuff like that. So I'm just a little disappointed that they had the 4Ks set and ready to go, because they've been screened, they're probably up on streaming, they just won't put them on the disc. So I'm very much upset by that. So you're kind of thinking like, are they going to double dip? Are they going to give it out to like Scream Factory or something else like that? Who knows? But I decided to grab this off of Groove, because I was looking around. Because I previously had gotten stuff off of Groove's eBay site, but this time I decided to go on their site proper, and there was a 20% off code for first-time customers on the website, so I got this for less than 20 bucks. So that was a good deal for this. So I was like, okay, that's a good one to get. And the title is a little embossed on this thing, if you can grab that off of the sheen here or whatnot. But really good film. I really enjoyed it. I thought Melissa Barrera was fantastic. Dan Stevens, fantastic. Catherine Newton, also fantastic. It's a really, really hell of a damn good cast. Really good piece of work. I think it's a hell of a lot more solid than the Scream films that they worked on, in terms of like some of the scripts, like we discussed in the commentaries, they got their shoddy parts here and there. This one, even though they had one of the same screenwriters from that team that worked on this, he was teamed with another screenwriter. I think this one came up way, 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 way better. I thought it was really, really good stuff. So definitely say grab this up. I've seen enough reviews of the disc saying there's aces in terms of the technical qualities, and apparently all the bonus features are very, very, very informative. But we're going to detour off here. We're going to talk about the Laserdisc stuff, because I was going off and looking around for a certain something here, but I ended up finding something else entirely, and there's another disc that's in my cube storage over there that I didn't grab. We'll have to circumvent that soon. But anyway, I was off looking for Laserdiscs about last weekend. And so I actually came across this first at my local half-price books. But it was priced about $25, and it's like, oh, that's more than I really feel like I want to pay for the whole thing. And so I was like, no. I have certain cutoffs, like I'm not going to pay this much more for Laserdisc. I mentioned to someone online that's okay, I think a lot of Laserdisc prices get a little bit overinflated. I think it's just the fact that it's a rare niche collector's market, and there's no real terrible standards of what to price anything, because it's all secondhand market type of stuff. Just kind of like feel it out, and it's so erratic sometimes what things are priced as. But that's what you have to deal with when you're dealing in this sort of market or whatnot. But the next day I went to I think it was Disc Replay, one of the secondhand movie media stores or whatnot we have around here, and they had this for $10 less than the other place, which means, hell yes, I grabbed it up, and it's the Aliens THX widescreen edition with Dolby Digital 5.1 AC3 surround sound. And I was hunting for this because, as I'm going to mention a few times, my friend Oliver here, but Oliver Harper, he did a review on the 4K that came out a couple of months ago. and he actually had this disc and featured some of the footage in his video to show off the difference in color timing. And so much so that when I shared pictures of this on Facebook and stuff like that, one of the guys up on the Facebook page mentioned that he had seen a 70mm print screening of Aliens a couple years ago, and he's also seen this disc, and he said the colors on that print are very close to what this Laserdisc looks like. So take that for something worth a damn. And so I was so much like seeing the different color schemes in Oliver's video there. It's like, yeah, I want to grab that. Plus, it's the theatrical cut. So a lot of people are very gaga over the special edition. As I mentioned in our commentary report, I very much preferred the pacing of the theatrical version, though there's certain pieces of the entire special edition I would like to still have this version. Kind of a hybrid cut that I would prefer in that regard. Seeing this was the theatrical that I kind of prefer better for the momentum of the story and stuff like that. And, well, let me show you a little interior of this whole thing while you listen to me ramble on and stuff like that. But seeing that, I was very much on the hunt for this. And $14.99 is a very, very solid price for that, because 4 years ago, I found for $10 the companion Aliens THX AC3 surround sound version of it. So now I have both of these in THX Laserdisc format. And so even though my player doesn't do AC3 surround sound, doesn't have the RF modulator output or whatnot, I can still enjoy digital sound out of it. I keep looking for another Laserdisc player, but nothing ever shows up anywhere. I got burned twice ordering one from eBay back in 2016, because they both showed up. One guy tried to send it as media mail, and they got butchered to crap in the entire packaging, and he probably owed a whole bunch of money for the whole thing, trying to ship electronic as media mail that's ready for like books, movies, music, CDs, stuff like that, not for electronics. But both of them showed up damaged, so I was like, I really not great about going on eBay to try to find one, because most of the stuff you'll find there's probably like damage for parts, stuff like that here and there. Probably hard to find one that's a really, really good working one. Best to try to find one that's local. You can go off and pick it up like I did, but I've been looking on like Craigslist for years. Not a single another one has shown up ever. If they have shown up, they're probably usually like earlier models, and they don't have like the laser flip or whatnot for AB side. And some are like, they're asking like $125. I got mine for $60, along with a collection of a couple of discs here and there. But they're like, for an older model, what I'm looking for is something that has maybe like a DTS output or AC3 surround sound output, the RF modulators type of stuff. Not looking for an older model. It's not going to do me any good. Why would I go pay more for something that's lesser than what I already have? So that's the type of thing. So regardless of that, I can still enjoy the picture quality and stuff, and at least kind of do a matrix surround sound and whatnot from the cables and whatnot, the RCA composite cables or whatnot. But just the fact that I've got both of these, I believe there's like an Alien 3 and definitely a Resurrection one. There are AC3 and stuff like that, but I do prefer the special edition cut of Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. I'm not that keen about it in that regard, but these are definitely the ones to grab if you're grabbing a Laserdisc. These are very, very good. No, there's bunch of different releases like box sets with those special features, but probably most of those are already on the Blu-ray sets and whatnot. But in terms of picture quality and presentation, these are very much high quality standards in that regard. Now, we are moving on to the main event here. The main event type of thing, because in recent times, I always look at my comments on YouTube and stuff like that through the studio app and all that type of stuff, and I've been noticing there's been a couple comments popping up on the old Terminator 2 home video retrospective I did back in 2018. And someone kind of mentioning like certain things like the CDS audio mix, various other things like that, and for things like the original DVD release and some other things, just a few little pieces I'm kind of being brought to light, like some things I glossed over, some things I barely mentioned, stuff like that, some things that are not discussed. And so it really started churning in my brain about last maybe week and a half, maybe 2 weeks or whatnot, about actually redoing the video and updating a lot of the information here. Because one little thing was that I did share it with someone recently, because Todd Vaziri, who's up on Twitter, all social media, he's fantastic. He works at ILM, visual effects artist, and he's very much a personal type of guy. And he was, I haven't checked in on it yet, but he was trying to compile a lot of information about the different home video presentations of Terminator 2 in terms of like picture presentation and stuff like that. And I figured, hey, I did a video about this stuff. I could share with you if you want, and I eventually did share with him at his request, and he was very much impressed by the video, and it's very informative, and he thought it was very, very well. And so there are a few things with the old video. One, I feel like I'm not great at voiceover, but I feel like I'm better at it now, a little more conscious of how to present myself in that regard than I was back then. And also, with the voiceover, there's points in time where my nose is a little bit stuffed up. You can kind of tell, at least I can tell, and the kind of later parts of the video where I sound a little bit stuffed up. And when I was working in the edit in Final Cut Pro 7, I was having weird problems with all the transitions because the brightness would suddenly shift and jump all over the place between certain transitions on the whole thing. This never happened in any other video I ever did. I don't know why it affected this one. I tried so many workarounds to try to change settings here and there to fix it, and it just wouldn't fix. And that's baked into the video. So if you go back and watch the video, there's just certain points where the brightness jumps up or goes off in some place here there. A little weird and jarring and whatnot. Most of it is very well edited, I think, in that regard. But in that regard, the presentation can be improved in terms of the voiceover. Some of the editing quality and whatnot can be improved. But also the fact is, okay, I started this entire idea of redoing the whole thing and started to think about just updating the old script I still had around. I did start editing things, changing things around. But the more I started thinking about it, because I already did the Terminator, the retrospective on the Terminator, the first film, as the retro video series. And of course, this was years before I created the retro video series. And it feels like, well, I think I probably should be a retro video series episode. Me on camera, doing things in the same format that I have now, instead of trying to replicate the same thing I did before, which would be a little bit easier. But I've kept feeling more and more that it might be a little bit harder to do in that regard. But I think that is the right way to go about it, to make sure I have a certain consistency. Because if someone goes out and watches the Terminator 1, then they link over to the Terminator 2 one that was done, this new one that gets done later on, and it's an entirely different format. It just feels a little bit out of place. It should represent what I'm doing on the channel now and the presentation I have now, instead of kind of replicating the thing I did 6 years ago. So I have to convert all those pieces of script into notes. This is going to take a while. I'm not jumping into this thing like tomorrow. There's a lot of work to get done, a lot more research, note compiling. I had to catch a bunch of Laserdiscs to get on the whole thing. I've already ripped most of the stuff. I ripped the movies from all the Blu-rays, the DVDs, stuff like that already. I've got to capture the Laserdiscs, and I have to do that all in real time. And these are versions of the film that run in excess of 2.25 hours, almost 2.5 hours to certain degrees. It's going to take a lot of hours. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take like half a day to get this thing done. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get up on this whole thing. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the rest of the weekend. But as we're going to kind of work around this whole thing, I did grab up some additional things that I had that I didn't have the first time around. Now what I had before, I had in terms of Laserdisc here, so I have everything at hand. I have the original full frame 4x3 version, which has just the super 35mm stuff put out to 4x3 in that regard. And I had the THX just movie only version of the special edition, which I got for free from Reckless Records years ago because I had ordered the THX version of the original film, and they sent this one by accident, and they told me to keep it when they sent the other one, the proper one, over to me, so I got 2 for 1. So I've got those 2 on Laserdisc originally. Then I had the Ultimate Edition DVD, Extreme Edition DVD, the Skynet Blu-ray, the 2015 Lionsgate Blu-ray, and the 4K edition. Now I've grabbed up some additional stuff. One being the original widescreen edition, the pre-THX edition, to show off the difference in the quality of their transfer in that regard. So I grabbed this for $5.99. I went down to a disc replay that was much further away from me. It was one I used to frequent when I lived in a different place, or anything like that. So I found it for $5.99. I went through many bins looking for Laserdisc, and it was one of the last ones I found. So I was happy to find it for this price. Unfortunately, it has these freaking terrible, freaking crappy things. So I have ordered, and should arrive later today, the more proper sleeves I think are on that I have on this one. Much more of these types of sleeves in that regard. They're much better. I hate these crinkly, old, plasticky things. They're terrible. anything like that. So I got this $5.99, and I didn't grab anything else at the time, but here and there and everywhere. I'll show off more of this stuff in the proper video with all my B-roll footage, which will be a plus because I didn't really do much B-roll footage on the old video, so that'll be an upgrade. But I also grabbed the original DVD release, which was very much glossed over. I pretty much dedicated about 5 seconds worth of talk to this thing whatsoever because I really didn't think it was much to comment on. But apparently, this has the original CDS 5.1 mix on the whole thing. This was like a theatrical, a very short-lived digital theatrical sound mix. This format was like 2 years in the business and was gone. But the thing is, the fact of the matter is, this is anamorphic and dual layered. For 1997, that's almost unheard of. Because that was the time when they were just taking the Laserdisc ports, slap it on there non-anamorphic, some of the things with the flipper disc where you could have to flip it over halfway through the movie, not making the best use of DVD whatsoever, but thankfully, stuff like I've encountered like The Exorcist, or there was something else I talked about like fairly recently, like a 97 DVD release from Warner Brothers. I can't remember what the fuck it was. I was watching one of my videos here and there. Anyway, this thing in that regard has dual layered. It's AC3 surround sound. It's anamorphic, so it's pretty top level in that regard in terms of paying that much attention to the abilities of the format to do that right from the beginning of DVD in that regard. So no bonus features, anything like that, but very much important to get the entire sound mix. And from what I was telling my friend Oliver again earlier today, that all the information I find is like this is the same transfer that's on pretty much all the AC3 Laserdiscs. There's a squeezed Laserdisc, anamorphically enhanced Laserdisc over in Japan. It says it has the same transfer. The other AC3 surround sound ones for US and Japan apparently are the same transfer. So I told him, like, I probably really don't need a capture of your Japanese one because everything says it's the exact same transfer across the board. Aside from the original Japanese squeezed Laserdisc, which I've recovered some additional information about, where my information in the old video is not entirely accurate about what it was in terms of the master used for it. So there's a lot of information I've gathered just in the last couple of days that will just fill this out even further. Gonna make a much longer video in that regard, but it's gonna be well worth it. It's gonna be much more comprehensive in that regard. I'll be able to cover a lot more bases. There's a couple other releases that are not really like anything new done for them, but there's some things just to note in like different territories, how the thing was handled somewhere else, or like maybe there was a DTS mix instead of just a Dolby Digital one, or something else like that. Various other things. There's just a lot more information I've been opened up to make this much more of a comprehensive video. The other one was much more of a streamlined, kind of skimming the surface type of things in some regards. This one will go much more detail, show off a lot more stuff, and comparing the different transfers from like the Laserdisc up through this thing, going into other things. So a little bit more even in that regard, and not just talking about release dates, special features, impact. I'll show a lot more of the technical information on the whole thing, plus some things about the audio mix. They'll have to do a lot of research on the regard, so a lot of stuff to get up on. So I was like thinking like, well, I'm not going to get this thing in production this weekend. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. I was kind of thinking like, well, what else could I possibly do as another video instead of just a channel update? It's like, I really can't squeeze in another video right now if I'm going to be spending time capturing the Laserdisc footage onto the computer, where I'm going to have the Laserdisc player and the computer and stuff like that, and I can't really be ripping discs and stuff like that and shooting videos when the thing's kind of capturing stuff over here. It's kind of too complicated. There's too much going on. There's too much going on in this whole thing to kind of do both things at the same time. So it's going to be a little bit of a break here. I'm going to see where things move along here and see how soon things get up on. I'll just see what happens. Maybe something else. After I get everything captured, maybe in midweek, I feel like I can get up on something else. I'll see what happens. But this will be progressing as things move along. So if other things drop on the channel, just know this thing is progressing to certain degrees here. So not to let any more information out of the bag and whatnot, but it is in process. And it's very much, I'm very well dug in this whole thing. I got things bookmarked and saved and dug up from like 10 years ago plus on various forums or whatnot. There's a lot of information here that's really piling up that I've got to collect into a pile of notes. That's just going to be pretty intense. How I'm going to shoot this thing, I might have to break it up between different days. I don't know. There's gonna be a lot to cover, and I want to make sure I'm not just barreling through the whole thing and kind of get into a sloppy mess of certain things. I want to make sure I do this very well and not have to overburden myself. So I just want to make sure I can get this done here and there and move it along. So we'll see where things progress from that point onwards. Taking a moment here. So from that point onwards, talking about certain things here in terms of like, I mentioned the film project here and there that we're kind of looking to get going in some place here for the short film that I have in mind. And things aren't going anywhere right now, but I want to shout out at least a couple of channels here. One that's relevant here, I'll get to another one later. But I mentioned before, Kent Lamb over at Standard Story Company put out a nice video yesterday where he was starting production on a very big short film project he had. Certain things didn't go quite as smoothly as at the launch point and whatnot that he had there, but kind of turned me on to this sort of creative notes-taking app. Get it on desktop and stuff like that too, but it's called Milanote. I don't have a sponsorship or anything like that, but he did or whatnot, but I'm just kind of sharing this off to you. They're like, kind of the main problem I have is trying to communicate everything to everyone I need to communicate it to. And this website looks like it has a good potential to kind of communicate a lot of ideas as a central point. Instead of having to constantly throw emails at certain people, I can maybe kind of fill this out. At least on a free account, you get like a good amount of space to work on things in that regard. To just kind of, for like mood boards, work out logistics, about locations, and various other things. Just like integrates a whole different sets of things. Like you can do notes, you can do like profiles and characters, various production information, budget layouts, different things all over the place. It's basically anything you want. It's kind of a blank canvas, a lot of templates you can work off of. It looks like it's kind of an interesting way to organize information and share it among different people here. So I could create this entire thing, kind of shoot out a link and text out people with a link, and they can go on here and kind of get up to speed about where things are going, what we need to work on, and move forward on that regard. So hopefully, I worked on it a little bit last night. I have to work on it a little bit more as we go along. So as I'm capturing footage, I can probably maybe work on this whole thing and make that sort of maybe a nexus point to kind of help ease things along a little bit better, because that's just been the kind of problem we've kind of run into, like trying to organize and coordinate and stuff like that. So to try to find a new streamlined process to get that forward would be a very nice type of thing. Now, jumping back a little bit, I keep meaning to mention this. I did this months ago. I've been meaning to talk about for like many updates here that I finally did update my macOS on this thing, because I was stuck with Mojave. And that was from when I got the computer 5 years ago. That was the latest operating system at the time. And after Mojave, if it wasn't a 64-bit application, it would no longer work on the computer. And there was a lot of apps I still use, especially for like video conversion and stuff like that I didn't want to lose access to, and didn't quite have at the point where I wanted to afford paying for brand new apps and stuff like that. So I held on to this Mojave for so very long. But a couple months ago, I finally did take the plunge, went through a bunch of things, and finally upgraded the entire OS, where I did get upgrades on Final Cut Pro and Adobe Photoshop and stuff like that. And I had to upgrade my video capture software, because the old thing I had, even the software was old, like old stuff, pre-64-bit. So it was just like, it was just not going to work. And Oliver, like I mentioned before, also keyed me into the fact that you had to get a different type of capture card. It had to be like an HDMI capture card. The old analog stuff wouldn't work directly into the OS anymore. So I had to get a little piece of something to get the old analog AV to HDMI upgrade and to get that into a HDMI capture card and this whole thing. So I did have a different HDMI converter or whatnot, but I didn't like the picture quality. It looked like it cropped the image in and the colors were less vibrant. So I actually upgraded to get this one here and stuff like that. So that kind of worked on it. I can't switch the aspect ratio. I can do between 720 and 1080p, but I can't switch between 4:3 and 69, which the other one did. But like I said, I was not impressed with the capture quality of the entire thing. So I definitely had to get a different one and kind of go off on that thing. So that's what I'm using for this entire thing, where all the footage will be natively in 1080p in that regard. So I don't have to sit through a lot of render times or whatnot, kind of get it up to the old like deinterlaced 40p and upscale it and stuff like that. It'd be a little bit easier to work with in that regard in terms of formats and everything like that. And of course, since I've got new conversion software, everything is much better. Some of the old software I had, it would convert to Apple ProRes, but there was still a little variation in terms of like the dimensions, the aspect ratio, whatnot. I had some problems with that thing, so you still had to re-render when I put in Final Cut. This is much cleaner type of stuff. So I've already ripped all the Blu-rays, ripped most of the bonus features, stuff like that. It was very tough going through the Ultimate Edition. The Ultimate Edition DVD was giving me fucking problems like hell. I could not get the goddamn, like, the further extended cut with the alternate ending and stuff like that really fucking ripped from the software I had. So eventually I had a free piece of software that had like a 5-minute window when you could like cut it, a limit of 5 minutes to rip anything. It wouldn't rip any more than 5 minutes long. So I had one that actually was able to find that title on the disc. Such an old disc, and they hid things a lot of Easter eggs. I'm sure that kind of fucks up a lot of things. But it was all the other stuff was having a lot of troubles kind of finding the Ultimate Edition cut on the disc for me to grip the footage from it. So I had to get specifically for that. So I finally got that. But grabbing all the little pieces of all the bonus features was just a pain in the ass. Because there's like 40 different titles on that thing. And I had to grab every one at a time. It was just a pain. And I go through every single one of them to tell the software to de-interlace every single individual fucking one of them. So, going through some problems already. So, going through problems. But anything like that, guys. So, that T2 Redux Retro Video Series 1 will be happening. It's in process, pre-production, all that type of stuff. Once I get into production, you can find posts on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or the community tab here on YouTube. I'll be sharing that once I get things in front of the camera for that. So that's probably still going to be, this could be 2 weeks before I get this thing out, realistically speaking. So I don't tend to like to go that far without putting something on the channel. So maybe there'll be a break in there where I'm like, okay, I gotta just kind of ease my mind off of this and not go off in that regard and find something else to do. But I was looking over my list of other like reviews I could do, and nothing was really kind of grabbing me right out. So we'll see. A couple of days, see where things go, and I might kind of cycle through some things here and there. So that's all I got for you at this point in time. And one other thing I do have before I go is that on Twitter, whatnot, if I call it X, that's fine, whatever the fuck. But Twitter is what I call it because that's what it still says on my freaking app here. I haven't updated this app since like last September. But and in that regard, there was a 4K scan going around online. There's one guy on Twitter, whatnot. He shares a lot of these different things. Very good 4K scan of a theatrical print that has like 6 or 7 different audio tracks. Like it has like the original Dolby Surround, that has like a AC3 version of the surround track. Then it has the CDS mix, and then various other things like it's got multiple audio tracks. So if I can rip those off of this version, because it's like 70 gigabytes, it's fucking huge. I cannot put this on I can't really put it on anything to watch it on the TV. I got to figure out if I can cast it over here on the TV and get the surround sound out from that point to see if I can do anything with it. But it's almost impossible. So we're going to see what happens in that regard. But I do have this version of the whole thing, and it's going to show a lot of things in terms of the color grade and stuff like that. So there's a lot of other tools I have right now to really fill this thing out. Plus, that was the first James Cameron 4K we had. We've now had a lot more to talk about to add to the conversation. There is the talk that the original Terminator is getting the 4K later this year for the 40th anniversary. Lord knows what's going to happen, because the remastered Blu-ray was from a 4K scan, but that was over like 12 years ago. So I don't know what they're doing in that regard, but it was from a 4K. I think that looks very good. You can go back and watch my Retro Video Series episode on that when I was many pounds heavier, a lot sweatier. But the information is all still very solid in that regard to kind of explain that type of stuff, or anything like that. So probably that's not going to be in the conversation. It's too far off for me to get off on that thing. But I think there's supposed to be a screening at some place in the next couple of weeks of that thing. It's rumored. I don't know exactly the details, but I'll stick close to the forums to see where that information comes out in that thing. If it gets screened and some reactions, something like that, I'll see what happens. If it gets integrated in some ways, but right now I'm just going to deal with things that are already available to me to work off of. So a lot of information to go off of to talk about all this type of stuff. So there's a lot fuller video in that regard. So hopefully you guys are excited for that thing, because I'm excited for it. Because like I've said, I've had a lot of retro video series episode ideas that are still in play. I just haven't got around to it. But the fact is, this has been churning up in my mind since I started seeing those comments on the old video. This is happening right out the gate. This is happening now. I'm going off for it, guys. So hopefully this will come together very easily and not too turbulently, and come together in a nice, just doesn't take too damn long. So we'll see how things go off in that regard. So guys, other channel I wanted to shout out before I leave, Phintasmo does some really fantastic video essays on Babylon 5, the J. Michael Straczynski sci-fi series from the 90s. Has also had a few other additional things since then, recently, like the Road Home animated movie that I very much enjoyed. But I really love his channel. About every 2 weeks or so, he puts out a new video. And they're all very insightful, they're very succinct, they don't go on too long, but they're all very much pertinent. So if you're very much a fan of B5, if you want to get into B5, anything like that, to explore that type of thing, highly recommend his channel. Does a fantastic job. I'm just always right on top of every video he releases, usually on a Saturday or Sunday, whatnot. Usually puts them out kind of like every other weekend in that regard, but does a really fantastic job. I'll link it below. All the other links for everyone I've mentioned here will be down below. If you don't already know all of our stuff, jump on it below, check it out, anything like that, guys. So that's the end of it. So thanks so much, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.